Good evening. My name is Tom Rayom, and I'm chairman of the Public Works Committee. With that, item one, I'll call the meeting to order. We are meeting in the first floor conference room at City Hall. It's Tuesday, April 8th, 2013, 5:30 in the evening. So with that, go around, Marion, you
Yeah,
want to...
Marion Holcamp, secretary.
Dave Lasper, city engineer.
Joe Eichstadt, design engineer.
Larry Cookman, Lampert Lane Associates, here for the Village of Barron.
John Evenson, Village of Buren.
I'm Karen Madden, Daily Tribune. Sue Shell, City Attorney.
Scott Kellogg, third district alderperson.
Johnston, Second Avenue South.
Gilmore.
Glenn Striegel, second avenue south.
Sarah Striegel, Second Avenue South.
Ed Allison, Wisconsin Rapids Schools.
All right, with that, we'll go to item number two. And that's a request from the Village of Beard to close 48th Street from Log Home Lane to Commerce Drive for a period of up to 3 weeks, beginning about April 21st, 2014, to facilitate the installation of a 16-inch steel casing under the CN railroad tracks for the 8-inch sanitary sewer force main from the Buren Business Park to the Wisconsin Rapids 21-inch sanitary sewer at 48th Street. Now, after all that, Dave, you wanna
Well,
give an intro or?
I'll start out. I believe it was last year where the committee met with Buren and gave Village of Buren the permission to install a force main to connect, eventually connect at 44th Street into the city's sewer system. And we, the city, had them connect into 44th Street, and due to that, I guess the railroad made them change their plans, and I guess I'll let them fill us in on everything else.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. When we changed the plans to connect
You
at
can have a chair.
44th Street,
Wow.
we changed part of the force main to the west right of way of 48th Street because there are no utilities on that side, and the east side of the right of way has just got a whole mess of utilities there. So to avoid those conflicts, we shifted everything to the west side. Just made more sense. As a result, I had to resubmit to Canadian National Railroad for revising our permit to install that casing pipe. And as a result of that, they came back and said they now have a requirement where we need to keep 15-foot minimum of horizontal separation distance between any of their above-ground facilities, their flashers or their electrical boxes or their control house, any of those things. So because of the location of all their various items, the only place we could comply with that 15-foot horizontal separation distance was out in the roadway of 48th Street. So as a result of that, and because of the duration of the project, we think we may be able to keep part of a lane open or even keep one lane open, but because the duration is going to be 2 to 3 weeks, we're asking in a request saying 3 weeks. My contractor tells me that they're hoping to have it done in 2 weeks. But to just have one lane open across the railroad tracks at night is very problematic, and the cost of putting up temporary traffic lights there to regulate the traffic at night would be cost prohibitive. So what we're proposing is that we're going to need to close Log Home Lane, or close 48th Street between Log Home Lane and Commerce Drive. And so I had mentioned in the request, I put a date of April 21. And I know that the city, once Common Council approves it, they have a minimum of 7 days notice to people involved, police, fire, schools, I assume, and stuff. Plus, we would not want to do this work because of the detour routes, and the next item is going to deal with temporary truck access. We want to make sure that the weight restrictions are pulled from all of those roads before that work would take place to minimize any risk that the Village of Buren would have with any damage to those roads during that time that they might have to repair. So that's That's kind of what we're proposing, and this is gonna require a detour route. So we kind of got that laid out here on this map here, if you can see that. So this is Highway 54 right here. Right now, the truck access to Eastside Commerce Center and out to Mariani is utilizing 48th Street North in this segment here. So with this segment here being closed to traffic, what we're proposing is using 32nd Street as that detour route. So it'd be detoured up 30, or south on 32nd from 54 to Washington, and then back over to 48th Street, where the truck route would then continue, that's in place now with the town of Grand Rapids for Mariani. And all of that traffic,
Okay, is that more dealing with our item 3 or?
well, I'm just, the
Okay.
road closing and the detour
Okay.
route. So that's, yeah, I'll just hold off on the truck part of it. But that is the proposed detour route, would be using Washington Street and 32nd.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any other comments from anybody? Hearing none, committee will
What are
have
your thoughts
recommendations.
with regard to that?
Well, you can, I guess, leave one lane open, but it's not the safest, and like Larry said, you'd have to get traffic control with a signal system in there.
And you gotta work around it.
Right, you gotta work around it, so you'd have traffic, the safest way is to close it, I guess. It'll inconvenience, the public for 3 weeks, but the safest is to close it.
That may speed it up from 3 weeks to 2 weeks.
Right,
Yeah,
and
it's such a short
contractors will
period
work
of time.
faster when it's
Yeah.
closed.
The contractor has quite an incentive to get it done as fast as possible, because once they start the actual jack and bore,
Yeah.
they are required to have a flagman from CN there at a cost of $1,300 per day. So there's some real incentive to
Yeah.
get in there and out of there as quick as possible.
I'll make a motion to grant the request.
I'd second.
We have motion and second to grant the request on item 2. Committee, all those in favor respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Item 3, request from the Village of Beard for a temporary truck detour route for 48th Street traffic. The temporary truck route would include 32nd Street from the railroad tracks south to Washington Street, then east on Washington Street to 48th Street, then north on 48th Street to Commerce Drive. Dave?
Well, as far as the city's concerned, our roads are 32nd Street and a little bit of Washington. We build our roads so that they don't bust up with this type of 3 weeks of truck traffic, semi-traffic. It shouldn't be any negligible damage to our roads. I can't speak for the town of Grand Rapids. They put weight limits on their roads, and they would have to agree to this for this detour to be able to go into effect.
When are they meeting, do you know?
Tonight at 6 o'clock.
I thought I saw that
was-
somewhere, but I didn't
thank you-
wanna say
Thank
it.
you for moving us up on the agenda, because originally both meetings were scheduled to start at 6 o'clock, and graciously moved us up, and then the meeting got moved up, so that works out well for us. So, yes, I've been in contact with Arnie Nystrom about this whole thing, and in addition, I've contacted all of the businesses that are involved already on it, and didn't seem to be any real issues. You know, as far as Mariani is concerned, all of their traffic is from the plant to Midwest Cold Storage, which is right at the railroad tracks here on 32nd. So it doesn't really inconvenience them at all. Have about 16 semi-loads making round trips, some initiating with finished product at Mariani going to the freezer, and some raw product coming out of the freezer going to Mariani. The new entity, what used to be Wisconsin Rapids Grains, now Allied Cooperative. I was able to catch one of their guys there this morning. The city didn't have any contact information, so I do have that, if I pass that along to you. And they won't be moving any product in or out until sometime in June, maybe even July from there, so it won't affect them. Jamie Mansell had me talk to John Holberg, the shipping manager at ECC. They didn't anticipate any problems. They're not getting that much stuff shipped in, and don't have any large tanks going out or anything, so it didn't seem that there'd be any problem. Anderson, they're coming into their busy season, so depending when the weight limits come off and when the farmers get in the field, they're gonna have fertilizer shipments going out. Their biggest concern was that there wouldn't be any disruption in rail traffic, which there will not be. And met with EMR this morning. They don't have anything really big going in and out. And Jim Wolf at Rapids Prop, he's just moving boats out of storage over to wherever he's taking them to. And so as long as I keep them posted so they don't waste time driving the wrong road, he didn't see any problems with it. So getting to, like Dave said, as far as Wisconsin Rapids is concerned, it would be the section of 32nd Street from the railroad tracks to Washington, and then I believe that first quarter mile on
Right.
Washington is joint jurisdiction with the town of Grand Rapids. And then the 48th Street portion and all of Washington will be an issue that we'll be bringing up to the town board tonight at Grand Rapids.
This is for the same period of time that,
Correct.
Nothing else you could do if you're gonna close.
You're right. I gotta let them go somewhere.
And somehow there's several apartments, units along there, is there some way? I'm just bringing it up to notify them of truck traffic
Oh,
before they start calling City Hall or me or whoever what's going on.
talking about the ones right across from Mid-State Town?
Yeah, there's a couple of complexes and
Yeah.
I'm going up 32nd on the
On
east
32nd
side.
too.
Okay.
I was just wondering if there's some way, and,
Yeah, I
now
can,
we'll play it by ear.
I can see if I can get a hold of the apartment managers there and just kind of let them know, so.
And be proactive, yeah.
We should
Mhm.
probably let Washington School know too, Larry. Just maybe notify them as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. I don't know
Most
how
of their
many, I don't know how many
activities-
kids cross there, but.
Yeah, most of their activities probably further in on Washington, but we can still at least give them the courtesy of letting them know.
Dave, do you wanna take care of that, or Joe, from our, or Larry, would you contact Washington School?
Sure,
Okay.
or either I will or Village Bureau will, one or the other, but we'll take care of that.
All right, any other comments by anybody? Committee?
I'll make a motion to accept that
I'll second.
the change of the road.
Just, it has, it would be contingent in Grand Rapids.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Fine.
right,
Contingent on Grand Rapids approving what they have to tonight. Committee then will vote, all in favor respond by aye,
I,
opposed, and that passes.
Thank you very much.
Good item. With that, just, we're gonna skip the next three items as people aren't here for that. I don't think.
No, I don't.
So we're gonna go to item 7, which is, with the parking by East Junior High. Request from Ed Allenson, the Building and Grounds Director of the Wisconsin Rapids School District, to remove a portion of the 2-hour parking restriction on the south side of Peach Street between Lincoln Street and 6th Street South, adjacent to the school district administration.
This will affect 3 spots. Basically, there will be 2 spots there yet that are 2-hour parking only for, people registering kids, things like that. The 3 spots would be on the west side of the main entrance into the board office. We have a lot of problems with people carrying heavy items and things of that nature across icy sidewalks and stuff, so it'd be nice if they could park there, leave their car for more than 2 hours and come out. I don't have a copy for everyone.
I made copies.
Oh, okay.
When you sent me the map, I made copies for the committee.
But that's basically it. We have a lot of, like our curriculum coordinators, they're taking heavy curriculum materials in and out. They may have to leave 2-3 times during the day with stuff. Just be nice to have a few spots there where they can, didn't have to worry about the 2-hour parking issue.
I guess, I have a concern, because if it's unlimited, then I do find sometimes you might have a secretary that works in that building and could park there in the morning
Yeah,
and could stay there all day, which would be contrary to this idea of having it available for someone to come in and go a short distance. And that's why I often thought the 2-hour parking, you have to come in, do your business, and leave so that someone else who has business can come in. And so, I don't know if that would,
We still have the 2 spots on the east side of the main sidewalk going up to the board office. Those will still be 2-hour parking, and then the handicap spot. So it's actually affecting just the 3 spots. But typically, I was at that building quite some time. Registration times, we have some issues. There's parking available too on 6th Street after the buses are done for, in and out. I don't really see it being an issue.
because I know as a principal, when I would come over and I would see, I know the secretary's cars,
Yeah, some of them would park,
and they would park there.
yeah.
And so I'm parking, I just had to come in and drop something off, and then I have to park down the road. So I don't know, it's something
Yeah.
to think about as a group, but I understand, I do understand where you're coming
From our standpoint, it's, we tell them to be safe on the ice and things like that. If you're carrying a heavy box or something, a lot of times they would either have to park across the road or down 6th Street, and then they're going across more icy sidewalks. That's,
we understand that, it's just the thing that somebody takes advantage of it.
right, yeah.
That's the thing that Scott's,
It'd be nice, what you brought up,
Yeah.
Scott, about maybe somebody who works there parking right in front all day,
Mhm.
to encourage those people, the employees, not to use that.
Not to abuse it.
yeah, yeah. If
And I
there's some way
guess-
that you can do that.
Sure,
And-
I don't think that'd be a problem.
And I guess if it is approved and there are problems, we'll be back here to put it back to 2 hours.
And the superintendent asked me for some background as to why it was 2-hour parking, and I thought maybe you people would know. I mean, was it an
It
issue
comes
at one
always
point?
from the school district, and the committee usually follows what, I think they used to have everybody parking in front all day long, and nobody could get into the office,
Right.
so then they put a 2-hour.
It is pretty well parked up the times I've been over there now, but.
That's why historically, I'm not really for sure accurate, but historically, being there for 13 years, that was the challenge that we had. And that's why I think they went into the 2-hour parking. And, it seems to me that if a person works there, they could park on a street adjacent to the junior high and then park their car there, or in the back. I mean, they have parking lot in the back,
Back parking lot, yeah.
but
And we had a real problem, which is a lot better the last 2 years here, on 6th Street there. That's our student drop-off and pickup area with these same people parking along 6th Street. And then you'd have kids crossing between the cars.
Mhm.
But that seems to be better now. There's different restrictions on there now and that was 2-hour parking, but, they'd come out and move a car on lunch break, and it's an area that was ticketed pretty heavily, at least when Paul Kubishak was around yet.
Mhm.
But if we approve it, it does become the administration's problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, if the employees abuse it, yeah,
Right.
How would removing the 2-hour restriction allow certain people to use it and not others for the pickup and drop off?
Okay, let's say I'm a secretary, I'll get there at 8 o'clock, and if there's no restriction,
Well, then you're gonna be there all
all day.
Mm.
And the whole idea is to be able to have cars move in and out, so parents registering, coming in for.
Right, I
visit.
know, that's what, I agree with you, so I don't understand how this is
I
gonna
think-
free up. I would say it would make it less likely that those spots are
Are available.
available, because people can be there for 2 minutes or 12 hours versus
Right.
only every other 2 hours.
A lot of times, we'll have meetings and things where, you know, a presenter will bring in heavy packages and boxes. They may be there 3-4 hours. So I don't have an answer for you as to how we're gonna keep normal staff from using that every day. But that's something we can certainly, you know,
So it's not an
Address it
unloading and
immediately.
loading issue, you want the people to be able to park there and stay there until they're done.
over the 2 hour limit.
So simply
Right.
putting a loading or an unloading isn't gonna help.
No.
It's the people wanna stay there and have their car closed.
Yeah, I don't envision this being, you know, first come, first served. If I can park there now, I'm closer to the building. I hope it doesn't become an issue. I can't swear to you that it won't. But that's something we could definitely address if there's problems.
Anybody else?
No.
Then committee, I guess, what are your thoughts, what do we wanna do?
Well, we can leave it up to you.
I disagree with the concept, but it seems to be a your problem.
Mhm.
And you're gonna be faced with.
And it could turn into a problem for us.
Right,
you know,
yeah,
that's-
yeah.
And then you may
yes.
have to come back to us.
Change it back.
And re-sign it.
Yeah,
That's right, it was good what you brought up, Scott, but I guess if we do it, it's their problem. as you
It's
said.
their problem, right?
yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't become a problem, but
And some people may think, well, I work here, you can't tell me where to park, you know, I mean, how
Right.
long?
Yeah.
Because I know some people might speak that way, so it will be interesting.
and Scott's been around. I mean, he knows there are secretaries that like to park up there even with the 2 hour restriction. And
That's right.
I mean, it's,
I'll make the motion to grant you the request if you stay on top of things, and if something
Do my
comes up,
best.
bring it back,
okay, will do.
yeah.
I'd second it.
Committee, if there's no other discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it.
Thank you.
Number 8, that's a request from Alderperson Gene Young to increase the speed limit on Second Avenue between West Riverview Expressway and Gainer Avenue to 35 miles per hour. Who wants to lead us into it? Dave or?
I guess I can,
Comments
I can
first?
start. This was referred to the committee from, I think, the February council, from Alderperson Young. Just a background, since 1964, the speed limit on Second Avenue was 35 miles an hour. In 2008, I recommended against the request to reduce the speed limit, but the council approved reducing the speed limit. It was changed in 2008. Village of Port Edwards in 2009 requested that we review it and brought up the fact that state statute says that, let's see, I've got the quote here. Local authorities with respect to traffic highways under their jurisdiction determine upon the basis of engineering and traffic investigation can lower the speed limit by 10 miles an hour, which we didn't have an engineering study to agree with lowering the speed limit. At that point, the committee requested 5 improvements to the street to, and then take a look at increasing the speed limit. Since that time, we've been working with the Department of Transportation on a redesign of the pavement marking and putting 2 lanes into the roundabout and moving the splitter island over. That's a lengthy process. We had a signed agreement last May, but then the DOT decided that they needed to do an intersection capacity evaluation, and we will be meeting with them again on April 22nd to find out where that project is. It's probably 2 years away from running 2 lanes into the roundabout. It is possible to remark the road. It's due for a chip seal. We can chip seal it, and we can't move the splitter island over at this point or run 2 lanes into the roundabout, but we can change it so that it'll have the pavement marking of the future. It'll have a 3-foot shoulder on the, what would be the west side. And we change that lane down to a 11-foot lane, and you have a 12-foot lane. So you'd have 11 and 12-foot lane heading south with a 3-foot shoulder to get away from the driveways and the narrow boulevard on that side, and then northbound would have a 14-foot lane. So that can be accomplished this year, but that drawing up there is probably not able to be done until 2016. We'll find out for sure on April 22nd with the DOT, but that's probably a couple of years away. So that's about where we are on the speeding on Second Avenue.
Scott?
Did anything change? Okay, it was reduced in 2008.
Right.
Did anything change that would merit for it to be increased? I mean, the conditions that existed in 2008 to merit it to be reduced to 25, have anything changed that would say we should increase it to 35?
Well, when we reduced it in 2008, I don't know what those merits were other than an impression by people that it was an unsafe condition. So, yeah, it's about the same as it is. We checked the speeds prior to lowering it. It was about 42 miles an hour. After lowering it, it reduced to 37, the average speeds with our traffic counters.
So they're still going 37,
When we checked that one, we checked it in 2009, 2010. We haven't checked it
even though
lately.
it's reduced at 25.
Right.
It's reduced at 20, it's reduced, they're still going 37.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to go up to 35, one might assume they could go up to 40 miles.
We'd also
Right.
want to take into account 37 is an average,
Mhm.
correct?
Right.
Mhm.
So let's take into account the people that drive 25 like I do, and the people that pass me going 55.
Mhm.
I've never seen too many people driving 25, and they should, but I haven't seen.
Yeah.
In fact, they would be an exception versus the rule.
For discussion, I guess, if you wanna speak, state your name, I guess, for the record.
Is that okay, Bill? If I go first? Sure. Okay. My name is George Hartley. I live at 1250 Second Avenue South. If you back that up about a frame, that's where I live. I've lived there since January of 1993. So I have encountered all of the traffic changes on that road. And it has gone from 1 lane to 3 lane, to a variety of different things and a variety of council meetings that I've sat in over 20 years and argued about it. The history of it, I don't necessarily, I don't think it's quite as it was stated, but that's kind of irrelevant at this point. Couple things I want to bring up. Number one, the current curb distance on that curb, have any of you went and looked at this?
Yeah.
Okay, I cannot get the mail out of my mailbox without standing in a lane of traffic.
Right.
All right? I cannot mow my boulevard right now without cars this close. Okay? The line is about, I would say 18 inches max from the curb. All right? That in itself is an unsafe condition. The traffic issue that you brought up, the 37 something miles per hour, that jives pretty well, probably as an average. But let me tell you, when you pull into the right-hand lane, people in that left lane are going 45, 50 miles an hour to screen past you so they can merge in before I'm not even sure what the traffic item is called, but where the kids cross the street to get over to the park. That little area there, where they have to slow down to get into a single lane. All right? So it's a disaster the way it is right now for a variety of reasons, which I'm going to get to. But if you bear with me a second, I've got some things that I did scribble down in a hurry to talk about this. Done as much research as I can on it, on issues where you're changing speed limits. And practically every study that is out there from increasing speed limits shows an increase in accidents and injuries when the speed limit's increased. As a matter of fact, a AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, which is a nonprofit educational research corporation or a company, in 2011 did a study that was published in Forbes that said when you increase the speed limit from 25 to 35, traffic fatalities can more, as far as pedestrians are involved, fatalities more than double in that 10 mile an hour increase. And that's just an instance of the amount of speed when something like that happens. And if you think that there's not a possibility of a pedestrian accident there, you need to go walk along that street, all right? There are families and children, and some of the children mine and the people that live here can tell you also that it's not, this is not an industrial, business section of town. It's a residential stretch of traffic, all right? Plus, Lions Park right across the street is packed in the summer with kids. You have the walking trail there. There's 100 reasons there not to have that speed limit increased. I don't understand why it is more important to get to Port Edwards a minute and a half faster than it is to keep that traffic at a manageable level. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, we talked about something about the raising the speed limits, and Mr. Engel, we brought that up, that you can lower or raise by 10 miles an hour in the statutes. Now that, of course, is putting the speed limit at a mark of 25 miles an hour, and that's what the state statutes say. At 25 miles an hour, based on studies that are supposed to have been done, and I don't know whether they've been done or not, you can raise or lower that speed limit. And it's also based on the 85th percentile of the average speed, okay? So I'm aware of all that. I don't know if those studies have been done, all right? But those studies also need to take into account more than just how fast it takes you to get to Port Edwards. It needs to take into account the people that live in that area and the impact that it's gonna have on them. It's just baffling to me why we're doing this. It's 25 miles an hour is, I'm concerned as to the reason why. I would really like to know, is the reason why because we're trying to increase the speed of traffic to get to Port Edwards? Is it because there's a fear of accidents because of the way it's currently handled? I don't know what the answer to that is, but the reasoning to me, it would be nice to know what that is. It's just an awful idea from start to finish to increase the speed limit, so.
Dave or Bob, I saw both hands if they want.
No, I mean, there was questions asked earlier and whatever and why, but I mean, and you asked the question why it was lowered and I guess the recommendation from engineering was not to lower it. It was a referral from Lee Albright and not to lower it. The police department said not to lower it, but the council decided to lower it.
I also bring up that was not 2 lanes at that point. There were diagonal parking, or diagonal lanes, lines on the road. There was
2004.
I'm not
Okay.
arguing what it was then and what it is now. I'm just saying the recommendation was not to lower it at the time, but the council decided to lower it. And I don't know, so if accidents increase, if you raise it 10, so did they decrease then, or
They basically stayed the same. There wasn't really big accident experience on the street, just side swipes and rear ends,
Right.
and it stayed
And I
basically the
guess,
same.
I don't really have
See, that's
a thing to say, but my other problem is when you say you live there and whatever, I spent first 20 years of my life on that street, and I played in that park and growing up and everything, and it's always been a highway, so.
Is it a highway, or is it a road?
It's
for
always been a
residential
highway,
parking?
it's
I
always
understand
been a
that,
highway.
but how's it classified when you look at the statutes?
It's a highway.
One
It's a
time it
highway,
was the
but it's
only way
also in
from
a
Port Edwards
residential
to
area.
Wisconsin Rapids all the way to Grand Avenue,
It's-
is what I'm saying. It was, the expressway bridge wasn't.
One at a time.
Yeah.
So.
I'm done with what I have to say.
It's always been truck traffic, and I don't think you have the truck traffic now that you used to have,
And that's what my contention is, if they reduced it to 25, there hasn't been any more accidents. The rationale for reducing it's the same, that for when they did it, why would we be interested in increasing it?
It's not my referral.
No,
Yeah.
I know, but
I know,
I'm being a devil's advocate that way, and I can't understand that. I don't know if
that's
others.
my question. How come Jean Young wants to raise it to 35? Has anybody heard from her?
Well, I haven't heard from her,
Yeah,
maybe
she
Sue has.
wasn't
but-
able to make it.
Sue had
Yeah.
a hand up.
But I think it comes from the letters from the state where we might not have been able to lower it. We shouldn't have been able to lower it, I guess, but that's, I don't know whose information you wanna go by or whatever, so. Whether it could be lowered or not, I guess is the gray area. So when Port Edwards sends us a letter, they want it raised, and so are you a good neighbor or not a good neighbor, or what about the neighbors or whatever, you know?
Go 25 through their city,
No, I mean,
you know?
correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but I mean, a lot of the we're looking at not having access on Second Avenue and from the expressway to, what is it, Park?
Park, right, and
Right.
the future project,
And then
we'll be
there's-
removing the access.
1, 2, 3
Four driveways.
4 driveways, but 3 of them, I think, have turnarounds.
Everyone touches the alley and back.
No, I'm talking about farther now.
Oh, further?
Yeah, I mean,
I think there's 5 in that section, and
All but 1, I think, has a turnaround.
with purchasing some land, I think there's only one property in the future that I haven't figured a way to get it not.
You know, so I don't know if it's a safety issue we're talking about, or just, at one time it was whether you could back out on the road or not. I remember the arguments, you know, and so now you're saying it's a safety issue getting your mail and whatever.
That's
No,
a safety issue trying to turn into your driveway with people bearing down on you.
well, it's a safety issue turning in your driveway anywhere on Baker Street.
But 35 makes it worse than 25. That's, can't argue that.
Oh, yeah, well,
Sue,
I don't have
yeah,
time.
have something. you-
Yeah, I guess you know, for me, there's a legal reasoning here, and it's been there for the last 6 or 7 years, and we've kind of all been trying to bring it to your attention and without success. But back in 2008, and you're correct, there needed to be these studies done, and the 85th percentile and all that, and that was all done back when it was 25. And at that point, the studies said it should remain 25. And the police, or, I'm sorry, it should remain 35. And the police department said it should remain 35. And I said it should remain 35 because the state law says you cannot change it unless you have the engineering study to back it up, and that includes the 85th percentile and all these things that I have no expertise in. Those things were not done. So I've been saying the action was wrong. We could not have raised them. The Department of Transportation agrees with us that we should not have been able to change that. That's what Port Edwards is pointing out now, that it should not have been changed. And I'm not going to go to the wisdom of, what the correct speed limit is. It appears from my reading of the statute and my reading of what the Department of Transportation says is that it remains 35. But simply the legal issue here of, I think you erroneously changed it to 25. I think it should go back to 35. I have concerns with us not following the statute. I have concerns with any citations that may be written for people that are speeding based upon an ordinance that might be voidable or is not, wasn't passed correctly. And I know the last time we went through this, there was some time, everyone kind of stepped back and said, well, maybe we can make some accommodations with the road and kind of buy some time and not maybe change it, and then everyone will be happy. But it's been 4 or 5 years now, and this legal issue is still out there. That it's my advice to you that it never should have been changed. That there's not a study, there's not even our public safety departments have said it should be 35. So there's really no basis for you to have changed it or your predecessors to have changed it. And I don't think there's any basis to retain it at 35. Maybe there will be another study done at some point, but it seems like even the more recent one still maintains the 35 mile per hour. So, that's simply my legal argument. I know, if I live there, you probably want the speed limit to be 15 and everywhere. Slower is better, but these traffic studies and the engineering studies that are required because of the statute, I think those have been well thought out. We have to rely upon them. And I don't think it's your prerogative to, not follow the law and, base it on something that really wasn't based on any evidence, so.
What's entailed in the study? Do you measure number of cars, how fast they're going, and distance, or how do you, what's it? So if you did a
Well,
study,
it basically, you try to set your speed limit, the federal government says the 85th percentile. What the driver wants to drive is usually the safest speed for, and this being a wide road, somewhat limited, there's no access on the riverside at all, and 8 driveways on the other side. And then you look at the accidents. Well, we haven't really had an accident experience. We've had one accident since, I went from 2004 to the present time, we've had one accident with a person backing out of a driveway and a car stopped and the other car rear-ended them, and so there's no accident experience that says, hey, we should slow the speed down.
see, my concern is, we're measuring cars, but are we measuring hazard? I mean, there's a hazard there. The hazard is that Woodbine, there's that island, and you have to merge to the right. And there's only a 3-foot buffer between the sidewalk of somebody doing snow blowing, or some child walking, or family walking, and you said using the park. There's nothing that would stop a car from jumping that curve
Yeah.
and hitting. And like this year, Sue Marzewski sent us a letter. She's out there, I'm sure, with this winter out there every other day snow blowing. And the point is that if you did a study and all you do is measure cars, distance, and speed, and forget about the hazard that exists there, there's no guardrail, there's nothing that would prevent someone from jumping that curve and smashing into somebody. And I trump safety. I don't care, I do appreciate study, but if it's only based on how many cars use it, how many accidents, I suspect there wasn't many accidents when it's down to 25 because of the sheer speed. So I have a concern about the criteria of hazards based in the study, which isn't considered. And that's a concern I've got.
Yes, sir.
Len Striegel, I live at 1650 Second Avenue South, and I guess I'd like to expand on that a little bit about the safety portion of it. There's basically 2 things that happen on that road every day. The newspaper carrier delivers and the mail person delivers. And what they will do is they have flashing lights on, so it's fairly easy for them to get traffic stopped. And I personally don't really care, because I agree, traffic is going 35, 40 miles an hour almost all the time on that street anyway. And it's not an issue from that standpoint. However, when you force people to go out onto the street with their snow blowers to clean away from their mailboxes, which fortunately we've been there long enough we don't have to do that. It's only those people that have moved there after a period of time when the U.S. Postal Service says you must move your mailbox. I would like to tie in with, whether you increase it or not, someone this city making contact with the U.S. Postal Service and saying, look, we want those mailboxes moved back so you can have your mail people walk the sidewalks and deliver mail rather than sending our people out on the streets with a snowblower. That's dangerous, very dangerous. And maybe they want to shovel, I don't care. It's still dangerous. And I don't know why it is, and I shouldn't be looking at you, Marianne, when I say this, but it seems like it's always an older woman driving a car that insists she's got to be right out by the edge of the road. So I know.
Right.
I'm sorry, Marianne, I didn't
We
thought
can
you'd enjoy
we can
that.
have that once in a while.
Yeah, but that is really, it is a safety issue, it really is. And I'll give you another instance of a thing that happened on the street there, and we talk about the traffic and its speed. What about our snowplows and their speed? One day we had a young lady, I would say she was 13 to 16 years old, walk by, and she, fortunately, I live three houses from the old gas station down there. And I just happened to be looking out the window. Along comes a snowplow in the spring of the year, and they're throwing slush at least 10 to 20 feet out onto our lawns. And I could see that coming right at her face. And I jumped up real quick and there's nothing I could do to the truck. Fortunately, she made it to the corner. But that's senseless for our people to be running the equipment that fast down our streets. That is unsafe. And, you know, I've noticed also that in order to make it a full 2 lanes, they'll go out of their way to drive the truck into the snow pile at the end of your driveway or on the side of your driveway and knock it back onto your sidewalk in your driveway. Now you start over with it again. And I'm not happy about that happening. And that's all part of a safety issue again. You can only pile snow, and the snow with the salt off the road, by the way, so far. It happens our area, the boulevard is a narrow boulevard also, but they put brick in it, so we don't have to worry about mowing it. Thank God, because I know many times before that happened, you'd be mowing with your back to the traffic, and they'd come right by you, just miss your elbow. All I'm doing is confirming what he said. And I'm not saying it's the speed. I think it has to do with training of our people to stay away from the curb and being able to get away from the curb, quite honestly.
And that would happen with that new design.
Exactly. I'd like to see this whole speed process be tied in and get on the DOT and get them going so that next summer, the planned development can be done, not say it's another 2 years down the road. I mean, I really believe what should happen yet on that is take that pinch point out at Woodbine and tell the DOT to tell all of their patrons to go down around the roundabout and come in their driveway, take a right-hand turn off the street instead of, that pinch point is merely to make a left-hand turn into the state building. And other than a few employees very early in the morning, there's not a lot of traffic going into that state building. And that's the reason that our problem is that pinch point. We're driving traffic in against each other, and I agree, there's not accidents. I know one of them took the sign out right over the pinch point one time. I mean, that's not considered an accident. I suppose he did it on purpose. Really, I'm kidding about that. I know it wasn't on purpose. It was because he had lost control of his car and they weren't allowing him to sneak in. And it always happens that way. I have to laugh when I think about it. Cars are coming down the road, they're trying to rush and beat somebody and then sneak in the line. They'll come in without turning their signal lights on, and I've seen the opposite of it. I've seen the people in the right lane saying, no, you're not getting in, and they'll go right alongside of them and force them to slow down before that pinch point in order to get in. So one of the main things is how safely our people in this general area that travel there, how poor they are at driving safely. The poor use of signal lights and that type of thing, that's part of it. There's the safety issue over the mailboxes. I think, again, the city ought to contact the U.S. Postal Service, ask them to reverse their process in that same section of property that we're in right now. I know when you go south of there, there's no sidewalk. You can't ask the Postal Service to walk across the lawn and deliver mail. But in this area, there's sidewalk, and we're expected to remove the snow from that sidewalk, so it's no reason why the U.S. Postal Service can't use our sidewalk as well as they do anywhere in the city where there's a sidewalk. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else that hasn't spoken? Oh, yes.
I'm the guy from Port Edwards that, I'm here representing the village, and, I guess there's a couple of issues with the change of speed limit, why the village questioned the city in the first place back in 2008. And that is because it is a state highway, and the state law requires that an engineering study determine what the safe speed is. And, you know, in this country and in this state, we've got 100 years of practice, close to 100 years of practice in designing roads. Civil engineers have been doing it. We have one of the safest transportation systems in the world because of it. And I certainly am not going to say that any perceived hazard is not a hazard, because the person that perceives it in their life, in their reality, it's a hazard, period. So there's really no debating that point. But the point is that anytime you change a speed limit on a state highway, you have to have an engineering study that warrants it. And there's a number of reasons for that. But one of the reasons is that, in this particular case, you've got a highway. This section of road has over 10,000 vehicles per day traveling it. The DOT warned, in a letter from, and I've got a copy of it, I know Dave has a copy also, that if you reduce the speed limit to 25, people won't abide by it. They will disrespect it, because the speed limit itself is disrespectful. That people will drive generally at a reasonable and prudent rate, and that the transportation system needs to be designed for that. Now, there are some traffic calming type things, some different techniques to slow some people down. I think some of the techniques that are suggested in this future, this future improvement would do that, narrowing the lanes a little bit. You get the illusion that it's in tighter, when you're driving in any kind of a traffic situation where there's construction going on, those barrels are right there, holy smokes, it's really narrow, I gotta slow down. It's not any narrower than the paint, it's just, you get that impression. So there are things that can be done to slow traffic down naturally. But to have, folks like yourselves think that you can make a discretionary decision about the speed limit on a state highway, you gotta be real careful, because you don't have that discretionary ability. And one of the things that I was concerned with right away, and I haven't seen it because I haven't seen traffic slow down as much as I expected it to, is that you'd have a differential in speed that's much more significant than perhaps it was. Some people drive 25 miles an hour, and then you've got cars queued up behind them. Other people are driving 40 miles an hour. And that differential in speed can be just as hazardous as everybody driving at 35 miles an hour. That's one of the reasons why the roundabout, some people like it, some people hate it, but one of the reasons why the accidents are so minor in roundabouts is because the speeds are very similar. You don't have variations in speed. Like one car is going one direction, one car is going the other. But I guess the bottom line is that, the situation with being able to enforce this is an issue. There's a lot of people that know that, if they get a ticket, they're gonna challenge it. Because state law requires that a study be done in order to change the speed limit on a state highway. And there was no study done that justified it. The study was done, but it didn't justify changing it. And because the city changed it anyway, that challenge could take place. And I would be concerned, and you can speak to your legal staff, but I would be concerned of all the folks that maybe did get a ticket and their insurance rates did go up in an area where the speed limit, where it wasn't, the city didn't have the authority to make the change. They just changed the signs. You felt you were doing the right thing, you made a political decision, you decided, you made a discretionary decision, but it was a decision that really you might not have had the authority to do. And that's the concern. Now, I've heard some folks in past years also say that, well, the speed limit here is different, the speed limit there is different.
I've got a church meeting.
And it's 25 miles an hour just down the road, or it was reduced over here. And why did that, why was that reduced? The speed limits are really set because of the amount of traffic flow. In this particular area, there's over 10,000 vehicles a day. In other areas where the speed limit might be lower, there's only 3,000 vehicles. And that really makes a big difference also, in traffic design, why speed limits are set the way they are. It's certainly not random. I design roads, Dave designs roads. There are principles and practices that we use every day that we have to follow when we set those things. And the spacing of the driveways is one of the things that's looked at in most engineering studies, access points. The DOT, for those of you that drive through Port Edwards and into Coosa, the DOT just recently changed the speed limit by ERCO worldwide from, 40 to 35. And the reason for that was because of the amount of truck traffic that's being generated to and from that facility and the geometry and the pedestrian traffic. So a study was done, the DOT conducted the study, warranted the change because of, not the geometry by itself, but because of the traffic flow and other changes. So again, I'm not trying to say that people's perceptions of safety is wrong, or because what you perceive is what you perceive, and nobody's gonna change your mind. That's the way it is. And I can, I can respect that. But, my only statement here is that just to be conscientious of the state law, and that, there may be ways to, try to encourage some improvement to the area, ways to naturally get people to want to slow down, that can all be done within, within the state statutes.
See, my point in reading this, it says the local authority may reduce it. I'm saying
Keep
the
reading.
decision was made,
But keep reading. May reduce it based on a
study.
engineering study.
I'm saying the study was based on the number of vehicles and the speed of the vehicles. It was not based on any hazard that could occur.
You could conduct another study then.
Well, then maybe another study should be, I would like to go to.
Until one is,
Well, then, until one is, in my opinion, it should be kept the same, status quo. And do another study considering how people have to merge to the right, there's no buffer, you could have someone could get killed. Yep, and I think of families where you have the little one just run off, doesn't stay near their parents, and you could have a car jump that curb. With the snow we've had and the icy conditions. So I would like to have a study say, let's consider the speed, let's consider the volume, but let's consider the hazard that exists there. And then I think we can make a better decision. And based on that, I would hope the DOT would see the light and make the changes that I think are necessary.
I think in the meantime though, if you take a look at, other places, if you travel, to some bigger cities, go down to Madison on a school day, and you see a 6-year-old walking next to a 45 mile an hour speed limit on a sidewalk, you see these things all the time. And the perception of safety, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, the city had no right to change it in the first place. The city violated the law by lowering it.
Can I ask a question, please? And I want to ask of you because you.
Question?
Yeah. All right, the statute, which is 346-57, sets fixed speed limits for highways. What I want to know, and I'm looking at this list, what is that section of road considered? And let me tell you what they are. You have an interstate, which obviously isn't. You have 55 mile an hour state highway, county roads at 55, you have rustic roads, then you have a town road, you have an inside corporate limit road, then you have an outlying district inside corporate limits, you have a semi-urban outside corporate limits, and then you have school zone, school crossing, etc. What is that? Is that
It's a principal arterial state highway.
it's not listed here in
Well,
the statute. So is it an inside corporate limits residential street? It's not outlying district, it's within the corporate limits of the city, correct? So according to this, and according to the statute that you're talking about, the speed limit is fixed at 25 miles an hour. And I can show it to you right here. You can raise or lower from that based on the study, what you're saying. I'm agreeing with you that there has to be a study.
Right.
So my question is, how did it get to 35? Because it's supposed to be a fixed 25 mile an hour speed limit. And in order to raise it, you have to do a study.
No, the DOT, it's a state jurisdictional highway. The DOT set the speed limit based on design principles and practices.
So what is that road? What is that road? How's it, because I'm looking at the list, and I'm
Do
looking
you
at
know
the statute.
it's a state highway principal arterial, correct?
Right.
But can a state highway principal arterial run right through the middle of a residential district in town?
They come out through the city.
Okay, so
West
then that
Grand
would
is the
be,
same way.
then that would be an inside the corporate limits residential street.
No.
Okay.
What's strange, is they don't even list it.
Okay, and then,
I will let
okay.
you guys say, my name's Pat Johnson, live on Second Avenue South. I don't have to back out on Second Avenue, but I come in the back cul-de-sac. And I lived there all my life, I lived in 920 Second Avenue South when I was brought up. And it was a state highway then, if I was going 35 miles an hour down that road, I don't recall that it being divided into 2 lanes at that time. I think it was just one way going one going the other. Now it isn't. Now you got cars going side by side.
Right.
So that's a little bit different. And then you talk about this residential area. I go down to Port Edwards, and I'm coming west out of Port Edwards.
and I get the railroad tracks, and I go from the railroad tracks to the stop sign, it's 25 miles an hour. And is that a state highway, 54?
It's a state highway.
So, what's the deal there?
Yeah, it's a state highway, low volume, 3,000 vehicles a day. The DOT and the engineers determine based on the volume of traffic that 25 mile an hour speed limit is an acceptable speed there.
Well, down there, their lanes on both sides are 2-car lanes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got 6-foot
There's also
boulevards
parking.
on each side.
Yep.
And you're saying, well, they can go slower there because there's less traffic, and and you can go faster here because we got 2 lanes cutting off into one?
One of
that
the
doesn't
differences there is
make any
it's
sense
a
to me.
10,000 ADT versus 3,000 ADT.
Well, to me, if you have more people and people going faster and a lot more traffic, I would think you'd be slowing down as opposed to going slower.
I guess I'm not gonna get into the engineering principles and practices, but that's why we use engineers. That's why, the city could certainly hire any engineering firm if they don't wanna trust their own staff's, analysis. But that's why in these situations, because it's a state highway, you gotta follow the law and you need an engineering, if there's an engineering study to justify it, if there's some accidents, if there's some geometry, if there are some issues that
It'd be just too bad a shame that you have to have an accident, somebody get hurt and killed, just to say that it's unsafe.
I think you have two highways there. You got the northbound, which I could see going 35. But you got that southbound, which I don't see going 35.
unless it was
My
one.
concern,
Mayor,
Here.
the mayor is here, and I think, he hasn't spoken yet, for one thing, and, so I'll recognize the mayor.
And I wanted to wait till residents had their first opportunity to speak, so I'll make just a couple of comments.
I'm a resident, and I'd like to speak for a minute.
Ma'am?
I'm on
Ma'am?
Second Avenue, I'm Millie Huffman, and my address is 1331 13th Avenue South, but my house faces Second Avenue. And the only reason we didn't build on another lot we had was the fact that we had to come out onto that state highway. And we thought at that time it was very dangerous. And now, whoever widened that road has put the boulevard for, and I measured it today, some of the places are less than 3 feet.
34.
And I don't know how anybody can walk on that sidewalk. I finally didn't mow the lawn on my boulevard because it was too dangerous. And I've been out there, and there are trucks that are coming right to the curb. And you can't tell me that's safe. And the snowplow, actually, a couple times, the city had to come in and remove our snow because we couldn't even do it with a snow blower. The snowplower put it all on our sidewalk and our lawns.
Okay, thank you. Mayor?
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of points I wanted to articulate, one of which, the suggestion about the city encouraging the DOT to take further action on this soon, which it was a meeting 2 years ago, almost to the month, that we met with them in their office building talking about this particular project. Given the fact that we knew that there were issues with the speed limit, but we also had some issues with the way the traffic was functioning, the pinch point, and all of those conversations. So I wanted to point out that that conversation was initiated 2 years ago. In fact, it's on the calendar again very soon. If anyone's worked with the DOT, which the engineers in the room understand, they don't work on short timelines, never, ever. In fact, we got them to kick this up. Their bosses got in trouble because it was kicked up too soon. And so now we're back to the original timetable that we were originally told, which is of course not on any of our timetables we'd like to see. So let me point that out. The second issue that I think on the safety issues, I'm very sensitive to this because when I stepped into office, we had a lot of conversations on West Grand regarding a fatality that happened there. And I think one of the things that I learned in that process was that every single corridor that's a connecting highway in our city, whether it's Baker Drive, whether it's West Grand, whether it's Second Avenue, you can take and point out a safety issue that happens there. And we have to trust the engineers that it's been designed to meet a certain specification and a capacity to move traffic safely, both not only for traffic, but also pedestrians, et cetera. And then the third and final point, I'd like to make is it's really a no-win situation. We recognize we've got residences that butt up to this. We also have residences and business downstream and upstream that this serves as a connecting highway for. I think, from my standpoint, of course, I come back to the original point that the city attorney has pointed out, that the city was in the wrong to lower the speed limit in the first place. It was made on information that shouldn't have been allowed. And unfortunately, we, all of us in elected positions, are sitting here today having to face this issue again. And it should not have been done in the way it was done previously. In such case, I'm of the opinion that we need to fix this. Should an engineering study be done at some point in the future, it can be done, that's no problem. And if it should produce results that would warrant that the speed limit be reduced at that point, I think at that point it makes sense to do so. But because of the fact it was done in the wrong, the city council's decision at the time was in the wrong, all of us are left to deal with this issue today, and we should do so appropriately. And at the advice of all of those that have studied the issue, read the state statutes, done their interpretation, and then subsequently we can follow it up with a study. And I think that's the prudent way to do this. Rules are set for a reason, they're set to be followed. And if we have an ordinance that we can't enforce, whether it's the police department enforcing it, or a decision that was made in the council, we need to do what's right, and that is at the suggestion of the attorney and those that have studied the issue. That was my point.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm talking
that was
about,
it. Oh, that was it. Oh, Mary, oh, you didn't want to,
Okay, you go
okay.
ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
talking about this issue of where you're gonna have a study and that done. Why can't we leave it at 25 until the study is done? Why should we take and change it now? 6 years ago, we changed it to 25. They haven't come back and told us, why didn't they come right away and tell us that then?
They have told us, and that's kind of why we've generated the conversations with the speed limit.
But why
Every time
can't
we
we
meet with
leave
the
it now
DOT,
till they do that study?
well,
and
part
come
of it
back
has
and-
been part of this conversation with the reconstruction. While they're separate issues, I really think the DOT has reminded us every single time that the city's decision was in the wrong. And for us to deal with some of these other issues, the DOT operates that, we need to solve some of these other issues
But it
first. I'm not
wasn't
gonna
brought-
speak to them because I'm not from the DOT,
Yeah,
but I
it
can-
wasn't brought to the council though.
Yes, it was. Mhm.
When
In
was it?
2009, I sent a legal memo, the DOT sent something.
But did we vote on it? We didn't vote on it, did we?
Well, you basically said, take some time to work out with the neighbors, and then that was 4 or 5 years
That's what I mean,
ago. Well, yeah, I wouldn't advise that that be the way to solve a legal problem, is to keep putting it off. I mean, I think something needs to be done, and, I think,
See, I respectfully disagree. I think that if a study was done,
the study was done and it said not to change it. So if we're going back to the status quo is the study that originally, or the impetus for it to originally be 35. So
but the study was, in my opinion, okay, the study was not done based on hazardous
the
situations.
study was done according to what the statute says it has to be done.
Volume, speed, 85% of the speed, and so forth. It doesn't consider that island where people have to merge to the right. Now, if you go back to, to me, it's the study and then it's common sense. And in the study, I understand that. You got the study, and I think you did a great job at the study. I'm not criticizing the study, because you have certain circumstances that you have to do a study. But when there's circumstances that could require a hazardous situation, there's no guardrail, there's nothing there, and to have someone increase, I timed. I went from 25 miles an hour to Woodbine. It took me a certain amount of time. Then I timed it at 35. The difference was 15 seconds. Now, I was going 25. Cars aren't going 25, maybe a few are going 25. The difference is 10 seconds. So someone going from the expressway to Woodbine shaving 10 seconds off of their speed for the potential of having someone hurt. I think safety trumps a study or what have you. And I think keeping the status quo, and if we do a study, or maybe this common council has to fund a guardrail or do something. But until that's done, and for the residents in that area, I think it's not fair.
One question I have though is, the way it's signed right now, if your police department can't enforce it, how is that safer? If I drive 40 miles an hour on the way home today, they're not gonna write me a ticket, and if they do, I'll challenge it and I'll win.
So somebody goes 60, how are they gonna enforce that?
Exactly, so I mean, you need to have rules both ways. The city needs to follow the state laws, and traffic needs to follow the city laws. And if the city has a 35 mile an hour speed limit, the city, you folks can request that your police department strictly enforce it, and that can be done. But as it is right now at 25, there's no way to enforce it, and that's why you see a general disrespect. Number one, because the traffic knows that they can't enforce it in the first place, and number two, it's obvious because they're not pulling people over.
Yeah, but I would say it's hard pressed to go from the expressway to that island and get up to speed of 45 miles an hour. You could probably get up to speed of 30 miles an hour, and you could get up to speed of 30 miles an hour. And I don't see any police department is ticketing people going
They won't.
five miles over the speed limit, or even if they have to get in front of a car, 35. They're not gonna go, people, if you go from that expressway to that island going 45 miles an hour, you should be ticketed. Because
won't be.
you have to gun it to do that.
But my point is that right now, what are you
You have a
gonna
speed
do?
limit.
There's no speed limit there.
Yeah, but there's cars in front of you, you're not gonna go 45 miles an hour. And it's, yeah, you can give a hypothetical situation, somebody could speed. I'm saying, in reality, I would, unless it's at 2 o'clock in the morning and someone making a right turn on that and no other cars in front of them, yeah, they could get up to 45 miles an hour.
I would sure want a speed zone though, that you can control the speed. You know, that you could feel comfortable having your city prosecutor sit in court and say, you know what, this was done right. This was an improper and imprudent speeding. If there's an accident, you could still get a ticket for improper, imprudent speed, whatever, but just for general speeding, it'd be pretty tough to enforce that.
Let them wait quick.
I've got a few questions. First of all, the one in Port Edwards, the study that recently reduced it 5 miles an hour.
Yes.
I would challenge, there's anybody smart enough in the state of Wisconsin that could do a study and justify a 5 mile an hour change. Somebody had to request something special and all they did is went along with it, first of all. Second of all, I would ask, initially on your request for this to be changed back to 35 from the Village of Port Edwards, did you have constituents from the Village of Port Edwards approach you and request you to do this?
It started out that way, yes. We had industry come and approach the village board.
Industry?
And then the village had a meeting with the Public Works Committee, the Wisconsin Rapids Public Works Committee. We got together and just talked about it in general, just to see, what was done, why was it done this way, just to get some general information. And it was upon that the committee asked me to research it a little bit, and that's when I discovered the issue that because it's a state highway, it requires a study to demonstrate that there's a need. You have to justify one way or the other.
Well, I guess I was rather surprised that once the study come together, that internally, it didn't go to our attorney to request this change.
It did.
He did.
It did.
Okay,
That was-
but no, it was your request originally, and now Gene Young. I never really heard a request in this committee where I come to a meeting because of it from our city attorney. It was from you, and it was also from Gene Young.
The last time I appeared at this committee meeting about this topic, I brought it up. And I talked to Sue thereafter because of it, and then read
Okay,
her.
well, maybe it's the way it's written in the minutes of the meeting. It was, your referral is what it was. And
Yes.
that's, all I'm trying to do is ask this question. Sue, do you go to Nakusa or Port Edwards and look for their laws and see if there's something out of whack?
If there are,
And that's what, I was just asking what prompted it. That's all I wanted to know.
I get questions about things that happen in Grand Rapids and Port Edwards occasionally from
Well,
other
you,
persons or constituents, if it affects them, but no, I don't,
you don't pursue their community.
no, but I think,
I mean, because we
I
need
like
to
to
work
be-
together. I'm
right.
surprised that your request wasn't turned over to one of our alderpersons in,
it was.
for the attorney to do.
Well, it was, and I wrote a legal memo to the council at the August meeting saying you should change this back, and the DOT wrote something
Yeah,
saying
but
you
that
should
was
change
a
it back.
result of the meeting that you requested. I went to both of those meetings. I
Back in
saw what
two
you said,
thousand
yes.
eight and 2009, right.
And that was the first time, when I came to that Public Works meeting,
Yes,
that was the first time, I had just discovered that myself.
okay.
So, I met with Sue, I talked to Dave about it, I talked to the mayor about it, and
Yeah, I thought you had indicated you met with the committee ahead of time.
we did,
On it.
we did meet with the Public Works Committee,
Okay.
just to try to get informed, what prompted this, what did the city do? We learned about the study, that was just an information gathering session. The Wisconsin Rapids Public Works Committee came down and visited us down in Port Edwards at our request, and just to try to figure out, what caused this, just because it is the major thoroughfare between Rapids and Port.
Well, now I understand it a little clearer, and that's been kind of gnawing at me ever since that first meeting. I
Sure.
thought, well, who do I go to, our mayor, to complain if something is snowing plowed right in Port Edwards, or what, And we don't want to get into that, but anyway, you appreciate the reason for the
absolutely,
question,
real quick,
right?
absolutely.
Real quick.
And I live on this road, like I said, for 21 years. And I sense that regardless of our opinions on this, it's gonna be raised. The only thing that I can ask then is if it's gonna be raised to 35 miles an hour, then the city needs to make sure that, number one, some of the things they talked about on there are gonna take place, that they're gonna have that 3-foot buffer from the curb, and that they're gonna institute some traffic calming, you brought up the term, and no one else did, the traffic calming techniques to slow people down. I don't care what the speed limit is on that road, the problem is people drive too fast. If you raise it to 35, then you better enforce it, and you better put some techniques out there, like narrowing the lanes, making it less attractive to people to gun it. And like I said, the reason they got it, and I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit, I guarantee you they can hit 50 by the time they get my house. I'm only about 10 houses down, I've seen it happen. And there have also been more accidents than what you talked about there, because I witnessed a motorcycle accident several years ago right on that road.
And Sue Majeski mentioned
so-
in her letter too.
Yeah, but if you're gonna enforce the traffic calming techniques and the law enforcement's gonna enforce it, then if we're stuck with the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, that's the best we can ask for. I don't like it, but it is what it is. I'm concerned about the priorities. I think they're out of whack. But if we're gonna go there, then we gotta make sure that we enforce it and don't let that average creep back up to 45 miles an hour, because that's the problem.
And if it was to change, make sure we have in writing what the changes will be in place to assure the safety, like what you just said.
I like the idea you talked about the 3 feet, the lane,
Right.
because I'm telling you right now, it's about like this. So if we widen that out, at least I can mow my grass without risk of getting killed.
And what's the chances of adding into your approval of this to also have someone from the city approach U.S. Postal Service about reversing their process on the mailboxes?
That's what you're talking about.
Is that a possibility?
We can do that.
Right. I know, another government agency, right?
They don't listen to anybody.
I don't think this is bad.
Let me join in. Can I be in it?
You join us,
Mayor, do you have anything left?
No, I think the final comments about, both the traffic calming piece, we've talked about that on West Grand and other areas. What can we do to institute some of these things that just add as more of a residential feel to the area, so it's not so thoroughfare focused? I think there's a couple things we can do, and I think to direct city staff to take a look at some of those things. You've already talked about some of the striping and some of the other pieces, so I won't reiterate those. I think the post office thing is a good suggestion. And as Joe pointed out, the right-of-way is controlled city right-of-way, so I think we can have a conversation with the Postal Service about that too.
I think one of the biggest things from the police department was that it's too dangerous for them to get out to ticket somebody.
They don't wanna hear
Yeah.
that. Baloney argument.
Yeah.
The same police department,
Uh-huh.
the same
That was
police
good
department that says that chastised my oldest son on a seatbelt violation because he turned off of the Riverview Expressway to the next road and pulled right over, so the officer didn't have to stand in the middle of traffic. And that officer chewed him out for not pulling over in the middle of traffic, so I could care less what our city police have to say about that. And I'm talking from 27 years retired law enforcement here. So you can disregard that statement.
Does anybody have anything, new to throw into the conversation? We have, I think, spoke of everything.
And they can
Many-
speak
many
up,
times.
and they can speak up at the common council
Yeah.
next week,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, so I would,
I just wanted to end this saying that we brought our concerns. We can walk away here with a clear conscience, knowing we have had our concerns. Now, if something happens down there, if somebody gets killed, can take your study and what, you know, what you're gonna do with it. That's as far as I'm concerned. If you think something that, if you don't take safety as a big regard, and I worked in the mill all my life, and they never did much about it, a lot of times they let it go until somebody actually got hurt. If that has to happen, that's your conscience, not ours. We presented ourselves there today, told you about it.
One thing, one question I had, and I suppose it's because, I don't know if that's, land on the east side of us, is that sacred property? Because it's a park, and you can't, like, they, instead of moving the road over there, like they had said at one time they were gonna move it towards the east, they moved it more towards the west where our residences are. Is that sacred property?
And by federal law, it is now. If you use federal funds, it's, we're not allowed to go into parkland. There's no negative loss of parkland. I think there's a way to do it, but it's very, very hard.
Because that part is not used, it's like, you know, you got that and it goes down, and the only part that's used is by the sidewalk there, across from where we are.
All right,
It's mowed all the time.
okay,
Maybe we
I
wanna
think
get a
that
hold of the
we'll
park
see-
district.
we'll see what the, I guess, committee has to say or take action. I would just like to make a few comments myself before we get there. Safety is the biggest issue if it's the only issue along that street. We have 2 or 3 things we can do as a committee. Turn it down and, or whatever, go back to 35. Because, to me, it'd be because of the legalities that make us do it. So that's 2 items right there. Different streets in different towns have been talked about. And their speed limit. We disagree with what ours was. Or people do. I shouldn't say we, because that includes me. That as you go into these other towns, what kind of roads do they have? Go into Nakusa, how wide is that? And they got 35 with a wide boulevard and a park on the other side and a sidewalk on the side with the wide
25.
boulevard.
It's 25.
Most of it is 35.
Well,
Yeah.
But there's a parking lane outside of it, there's 3
Sure.
lanes.
Go to Plover, 75 to 50 to 40 to 35, and the highway they got. Here is where the safety comes in for the street that we got. To me, it's not wide enough to have 35 until something else is done. And it's gonna have to be something that improves the safety along that stretch of the highway. It's just, I don't know. It's unbelievable, I guess, how to go 35 and what the boulevard is with the bricks that are in there. And the sidewalk down there. And I understand the snow plowing, because that's where the snow has to go. I mean, instead of a 6-foot boulevard or whatever, you got 3 rows of bricks that are down there and slides right over. So they're plowing, every snowfall they're doing, removing our snow. So I guess there's a couple, so we can, I think, stay at the 25. Go to 35, and if that, I guess, because the legalities would be, you know, for me. That's about it, I guess, just leave it, you can leave it where it is or go to 35.
Well, I feel leaving it as it is. Because if we raise it to 35 without some carrot, that there's gonna be change, there won't be change, or it'll be delayed, or there's not enough money, or where are we gonna get the money, or whatever. it seems to me that it should stay at existing. And if the common council feels that it should go up to 35, then that has to be a plan of making changes. If it's a guardrail, if it's cones, if it's paint, or whatever, before it's raised to 35. Because I've been around long enough where we make the change, and then, oh, we don't have the money in our budget, or we can't do this, and then we can't, and then we just, well, now they're stuck with a challenge. So, and if you're gonna do this, I think they should have a hearing. So people in that area can hear what the changes look like, and then say, okay, these are the changes. And now with these changes, it's felt that going up to 35 makes sense. But to say that if we go up to 35 without any contingency of making sure that it would be, and again, I still think these traffic, I'm gonna go to the DOT and just talk about this idea, what is a traffic study? And if a traffic study is volume, number, and speed, to me, that's not a traffic study. There's contingencies of hazards that exist of people, of factory parking into a certain area, or the situation that we have. So I'm gonna vote no. And if the common council decides to overcome it, then I would hope that they would put in this idea that within the next 3 months, or whatever time it takes, before it changes to 35, there's a hearing and safety precautions are implemented to assure the safety of those people in that area. That's the only thing I can say. So I was just curious, if there's no motion,
You can,
and it's not seconded, does this even go to the common council? Apparently it does.
without a recommendation.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna make a motion. I know, I think it just stayed the way it is. So,
So you want to turn down the request?
of raising it to 35.
So
And if it comes to the common council and there's a discussion, and they make that decision of making it 35, then I'm going to come as a common council person saying, well, if you make that decision, then I would like to make sure the common council puts something behind that change.
And in the meantime, you're not gonna, vote on this request?
No.
We're just gonna pass it on?
I'm gonna pass on it. Or vote no. I don't know, how do we do this? It just-
Well, we have to have a motion and a second to do
Yeah.
something, or we can't do nothing.
Yeah.
And just give it to the council. It will go there.
It'll go there somehow.
Without a
some way.
recommendation.
But I think feeling so strongly like this, we should have a motion showing them how strong we feel about this.
Okay,
So I will make a motion that we deny this request.
okay, then I'll second that motion. It just, I don't want to come back and have someone killed or lamed or whatever, just because we gotta get 10 seconds off of our shaving the distance from that expressway to that line. So,
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Joe, did you have something to say before?
No, I was just.
This
Oh,
Joe-
that's
Joe-
something to
Joe
say.
here.
Joe,
Yeah,
no, I was
this
just
Joe's-
gonna say that, you know.
I apologize. I thought I saw your hand and I
Yeah, well, that's all right.
recognized somebody over here and I didn't come back to you.
I was just gonna point out that the proposal that we sent to the DOT, is not necessarily the proposal that the DOT is going to accept. They're going to take a look at the whole corridor, they're gonna hear everybody's concerns, you know, through public hearing. This is all stuff that they told us, 2 meetings ago, that they're going to do all these things. They're gonna pick a concept, they realize the operational issues that are currently there. And they're gonna pick a concept that has merit, you know, to move forward, that either, you know, with the operational changes, that it's gonna allow the speed limit to go back up and be safer, or, you know, or maybe stay at 25.
Mhm.
That's all I have to say.
Until they do that, we'll leave the speed limit at 25.
Okay, back to the committee. We do have a recommendation to deny the request. If there's nothing else, committee, we'll vote. All those in favor of denying the request,
aye.
Aye.
respond by aye. I go along with. And, so there can't be any no's, but anybody have a no?
And come to the common council next Tuesday. You can't.
The only concern I have, and I appreciate what you guys did, I think you listened to us. And the only concern I have is like Sue and Mayor, being in a position, well, first of all, the police not being able to enforce, and officers of the city being in a position of not complying. I have a concern about that, I really do. And I guess the one way to let the Department of Transportation know of our concern is doing what you did, and we go forward from here. I'd welcome being asked to be a spokesman at any meeting with them. I would be glad to present any negatives and positives. I mean, there's positives too, I understand. I for a number of years, have taught the AARP driver safety course, and I tell you that roundabout is an excellent thing. I swear to that. And it's an excellent thing, and there should be more of those. It saves everybody money.
We're doing one right now.
Yeah, I know you are, And I would say if you'd reverse what you just did and make sure that everybody in the village of Port Edwards that goes over 37 miles an hour is ticketed.
Write some paper, you bet.
Thank you all for coming.
That'll pay for the changes.
I knew this, what the meeting would be. Appreciate everybody stayed calm.
Appreciate
Got excited, but stayed calm.
Very good.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank
You
you
did a
all.
good job.
Thank
Thanks. See you.
Yeah, here.
Take care.
Good to see you.
Item 9, committee, right-of-way plat, the city of Wisconsin Rapids, safe routes to school, sidewalk and crossing improvements, which is project number 6999-07-17. Dave?
Okay, we're to this point now in the Safe Routes to Schools project, which is mainly the Washington Street sidewalk, 28th Street to the Washington Street School, and Clyde Avenue. That's what we're looking at for right-of-way. The environmental document has been approved. Now we're requesting that the council approve the right-of-way plat and the relocation order. This puts everybody on notice. We have to acquire right-of-way to install these sidewalks because for one reason or another, people didn't dedicate enough right-of-way when their lots were first surveyed. And we've gone over before there's a power line on the south side of Washington Street. Water and Light has agreed to pay for the additional right-of-way to go around the back side of the poles. And so if committee and council approve the right-of-way plat, then the next one will be the relocation order. We will be sending out letters to the property owners and staking out the proposed right-of-way and then meeting with the property owners and hopefully coming to an agreement and coming back to the June Public Works Committee with agreements for purchase of right-of-way and temporary limited easement, which are construction easements, basically.
You got your job cut out for you.
I'm looking forward to moving forward because I've been waiting for all these approvals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met earlier with Dave about this, and I admire all the things you do with all the
Yeah.
state, DOT, federal government.
Mhm.
It's amazing. You do a great job.
Yeah.
You and
Yeah, with all the different laws and statutes and that there are, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a difficult project. It's a small project, but about every federal rule that I'm aware of is involved and we have to do Davis-Bacon wages. We have to put a percentage of disabled, disadvantaged businesses in there where all the steel has to be from America. And we have to just about every federal rule is involved in this project.
Amazing.
And now you have to meet face to face with these people, property owners.
Right, we'll be putting out a letter and sending them to Wisconsin, land law rights and meeting with them, and we follow the federal law that they get, just compensation for their property.
Are you gonna go with that open concept of home, like an open house? Talk to
I
them?
think that's a one-on-one.
Right, we usually go one-on-one
I
for
was
right
just
away,
curious.
just so I don't
Each one
think there's
has their own
any,
issue.
privacy laws that I'm aware of, but they really want you to
Yeah.
deal with individual
Okay.
properties. We've had open
Yeah.
house, I think everybody
Yeah.
kinda knows what we're up to.
Okay.
We've had a number of
Sure of
meetings
that.
with the neighbors.
Yeah,
Okay, do you need any action, Dave?
Yeah, I need
I
a,
thought so.
right, yeah, this is a legal, this would be, put in into the Wood County clerk for, it's, put into their office. So, also, this is sent down to, the state's master consultant. They're gonna review it one more time, so there is well, the only thing that will change on this is some technical writing, so I guess if the committee doesn't, it doesn't bother the committee, there'll be this symbol here, that symbol there, but we're not changing, we won't be changing what we're doing, it's just, they may want how it looks change a little bit more, but otherwise we have to meet before council or something. I don't think it's, to me, it wouldn't be worth another meeting just to change a few
Yeah.
symbols on the plan.
Well, I'll move for that right-of-way plat for the city of Wisconsin Rapids, safe routes to school, sidewalk, and crossing improvement.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Committee will vote, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. 10, relocation order for the city of Wisconsin Rapids, safe routes to school, sidewalk, and crossing improvement.
Right, that's another component, but that does, and the city hardly ever does it, is gives the city the right to, if we went to that point, to condemn the land for public purposes. That has to be on file at the county clerk's office before you can do that. We very seldom do it, but sometimes we have to in places where a property is owned by a number of financial institutions and you don't know who to pay. So you just, it's a jurisdiction order. You take the land and you give the money to the court and the court decides who gets the money.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that. No further discussion, committee, we'll vote on the relocation order for the city of Wisconsin Rapids, safe routes to school, sidewalk and crossing improvements, all in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Item 11, review the 2013 stormwater report to the Wisconsin DNR for the MS4 permit.
I'll try to make it brief. Every year, we have to submit an annual report for our permit. The MS4 is it's an acronym. It stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. It's a DNR permit. They wanna kind of take a look at the report, see what the city's been up to, for meeting the requirements of the permit, based upon, the information that we provided in that report. And, we did have a plan amendment, stormwater management plan amendment or update done to check our sediment removal. And we're at 24.8%, so we met our 20% threshold. And the agreement with Moccasin Creek Cranberry, or Sparhawks, that went through and they've signed that agreement. It's a 15-year agreement. So that's what pushed us over the 20%. Let's see here. We updated the ordinances just recently, in the last few months. So that's something that's documented in there. And then the financials are also listed in there, but other than that, that's in a nutshell
Good.
the purpose of the report, so.
That was good that Sparhawk came ahead and we did that. Saved us a
Yeah.
lot of money.
It was, yep, definitely.
Okay, can we back up to those three we skipped before we get into the, yearly schedule? Back to item 4, that's review and recommend approval of the bids for the 2014 curb and gutter and sidewalk contract.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Okay, we received, we had a very good year for bidding. We received 5 bids, and the low qualified bidder was from Robolewski Concrete Construction from Stevens Point. They worked for us last year, the year before, and we're happy with their work. So we recommend awarding the contract to the low qualified bidder of Robolewski Concrete Construction.
Also me.
I'd second it. It's a nice bid.
Mhm.
If there's no further discussion, committee will vote, that's to review and recommend approval of the bids for the 2014 curb and gutter and sidewalk contract. All those in favor respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Item 5, review and recommend approval of the bids for the 2014 concrete street patching contract.
We received 3 bids. The low qualified bidder is Summers Construction Incorporated out of Shiocton. They've bid a number of times in the past, but as far as I know, they haven't worked in the city in recent history. But they've worked around the area, so we recommend awarding the bid to the low qualified bidder of Summers Construction Company Incorporated out of Shiocton.
Bruce Shire.
Eastern, yeah,
East,
kind of
54.
over by, north of Appleton, I think.
Never heard
Mhm.
Just curious.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote on reviewing approval of the bids for the 2014 concrete street patching contract. All in favor, committee?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item 6, review and recommend approval of the bids for the 2014 asphalt paving contract.
We did receive 2 bids. The low bid was our normal contractor, American Asphalt out of Wisconsin, out of Mosinee. And they're the low qualified bidder, so we recommend awarding the contract to them.
I recommend.
I'll second. All those in favor respond by aye of review, recommending approval of the bids for the 2000, bid B, I guess, well, bids for the 2014 asphalt paving contract. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, as much as I like it, don't like them getting it, but I wish the county could do it.
Yeah, keep the money.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, just a few left, maybe we can go through them a little quick.
Yeah.
We'll try. Item 12, and that's to review the proposed 2014 Public Works project schedule.
So Solaris is currently working on First Street North. They are looking to finish up this week in integrity, grading and excavating. The DOT's prime contractor is going to be starting work possibly as early as tomorrow.
Mm.
So hopefully that'll happen. I actually had a meeting out there with Mid-State Technical College students this morning and their professor, and kind of showing them the project a little bit, and so they can tour the site. And we hope, from the city standpoint, that we're going to begin construction on April 21st. We're going to start on Clavine Court, as part of Rosewood subdivision.
Mhm.
So we'll be there for about as much as 2 weeks. We'll be there, and then we'll be moving to 4th and Oak, just north of East Grand. Other than that, the schedule hasn't changed from previous meetings. Probably just an update on 17th Avenue South. Larry Koopman earlier had talked about their issues with Canadian National. We're dealing with the same thing, just trying to get some soil boring, so.
Yeah.
So that's still in limbo at this point. And just an update on the Safe Routes to School, which we kind of had a little bit, but
A little bit,
I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Just that we have to have the contract in place by the end of 2014 or we lose our money. We were told that. Right now, we're on pace. If we get the right of way, in the June council, we would open bids in August and we could complete this year. If we get pushed any further, it may be like First Street, we'd start work in 2014. And as long as we start in 2014, we're okay. Start in 2014 and finish in 2015 like First Street.
Okay, any questions by anybody? Any referral, item 13. Referrals. We went through that here. Okay. Okay. Leave as is. Before we get to the next item, I'd like to thank River City's Community Access for televising this tonight and to be shown on the tape basis over the next week or 2 weeks. So, item 14. Motion to adjourn. Also move.
I'll second it.
All those in favor respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That dies there. The meeting is over.